La Vuelta Espana is starting really soon, and we've got so many riders coming into this race with some fantastic form that I wanted to make a guide looking at all of these contenders and seeing which ones are going to be the favourites going into the last Grand Tour of the season. And I guess the best place to start would be with the person who has won the last 3 editions of this race, and that is Primoz Roglic. The question with Roglic is that he is coming off of an injury which he picked up during stage 5 of the Tour de France. He fractured his vertebrae, but he is back training at the moment, so that is a good sign for the 3-time champion of this race, who is going for the 4th victory in a row. It's a parkour that suits him a lot. He's got a very strong team around him, including Sepp Kuss, who is a trusted right-hand man for Roglic when it comes to La Vuelta. There's the TTs, which suit him as well, and he is a very dominant force in this race. It's just a matter of, can he get over that injury and then try and secure his 4th title. You've got plenty of riders lining up behind him to try and take his throne, including Remco Evenepoel, who, aside from the Giro d'Italia, which he tried to take part in last year after his Il Lombardia crash, has never really done a Grand Tour, and actually the Giro last year wasn't a very strong representation of what he could do in a Grand Tour. He's had a very successful year, many victories, including the recent Classica San Sebastian. He's also won Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but can he convert these one-day victories into a 3-week performance? It's very kind of up in the air as to whether he might be able to do this, but for such a sensational talent like Evenepoel, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if he finished on the podium in this race. We've got Jai Hindley, of course, the winner of the Giro d'Italia earlier this year, a rider who shouldn't be underestimated again when it comes to the Grand Tours. After all, he did finish 2nd in the Giro in 2020 and then went on to win it this year. And although he recently finished 7th in the Vuelta Burgos, that shouldn't be taken as a sign that he is in bad form, because before the Giro this year he finished 13th at the Volta Catalunya, so therefore these warm-up races aren't an absolute indication of how people are going. It's very possible that during the race they get better and better, and that's something that Jai did during the Giro when he dropped Carapaz very late on to take the Giro victory. Can he do it again? Can he win 2 Grand Tours in a year? I certainly won't put it past him. Speaking of Carapaz, he comes here, he's got a very strong team. Yes, he didn't look very good at a recent Tour of Poland, but it's not really something that worries me too much. Carapaz is a rider who does very well in the Grand Tours. He's very consistent, he's finished many times on the podium. I don't think he'll be the sole leader for Ineos given the plethora of talent that they're bringing to this race, but he's certainly a contender for the podium in my opinion. You've got Sivakov, who is one of his teammates, who has recently just won the Vuelta Burgos. He's looked incredibly strong. His only downfall is that at 188 centimetres tall, he does fall slightly short of that UCI rule where when you're 190 centimetres you can have a bit of a position change to your TT, so he is in a bit of a downfall there, but he's looked sensational in the last few weeks and is certainly going to be a contender for the top 10. He finished 16th for the Giro d'Italia earlier this year after working for Carapaz, so maybe this could be a Grand Tour that Sivakov does well in finally. He's been knocking on the door for quite a few years now, and I think that he's certainly due a good result in a Grand Tour. Carlos Rodriguez is the youngster, the 21-year-old, another sensational talent, been looking really good this year. He won the national championships and he's had a string of strong, consistent results in a lot of stage races, including the Vuelta Burgos, La Lutte d'Occitanie. He won a stage of Basque Country as well earlier this year. He's a sensational talent, and I think that he will provide really strong support, if not some sort of co-leadership role in the Ineos Grenadiers squad for the Vuelta. João Almeida, after abandoning the Giro d'Italia earlier this year, João will be looking for a bit of a comeback here. He recently just won a stage up the Lagunas de Neila in the Vuelta Burgos. He looked really strong there. He's got a strong time trial, perhaps not as strong as it was when he was at Quick Step, but certainly strong enough to put time into other riders like Landa or Quintana, for example. And I think that after that Giro d'Italia where he was in 4th place until stage 18, I think that João should be looking for a good result in this race, potentially even on the podium. Ben O'Connor, after abandoning the Tour de France early just a few weeks ago on stage 10 after sustaining an injury, I think it was on that cobble stage in stage 5, Ben will be looking for a bit of a comeback as well, similar to João. He did look very good early this year, including a 3rd place at the Criterium de Dauphiné, finishing 3rd at the Plateau de Soleilson, and another set of strong results, including 5th at the Tour of Romandy, 6th at the Volta Catalunya, 7th at Vuelta Andalusia. He's an incredibly consistent GC rider and should, in my opinion, be looking for a top 5 in this race. After all, he did leave a tour early, so he's going to have a lot of good preparation going into this race. Enric Mas has twice finished second in this race, including last year where he lost to Primoz Roglic, and then also in 2018 when he was at Quick Step. He is another rider who left the Tour de France early, albeit it was on stage 19, so he almost did the whole race. And he didn't quite look brilliant in that race. I think he was hovering around the 10th place position in GC. But he is a rider who does like to pull out all the stops for his Vuelta a Espana, his home Grand Tour. And I really wouldn't put it past Mas to be Mr. Consistent again and finish inside the top 5. Miguel Angel Lopez has been caught up in some questionable activities recently, it must be said, which perhaps might come back to haunt him later on in this race. But he is a rider who suits this race. There is a long time trial, the 30 kilometres, that doesn't suit him. But the long, steep finish up to Sierra Nevada is one that will have his name written all over it. Going up to altitude, he's a rider who's finished on the podium in this race before, and he's generally a very good climber and really suits the Vuelta a Espana and its kind of chaotic riding style. Of course, he was a podium in GC last year until the big fiasco where he left the race on stage 20 and then just abandoned the race, which caused all kinds of drama. So maybe Lopez can try and actually finish on the podium this time and not abandon the race early. Other than that, you've got another set of riders for Bahrain victorious, including Wout Poels, Mikel Landa, Gino Mader and Jack Haig. Haig, of course, finishing on the podium in this race last year. Mader, I think he finished in 5th place. Landa's finished 3rd in the Giro d'Italia this year, and Poels provides some really good kind of backup. You've also got Simon Yates, who, if he can string together a free-week result, can do very well in the Grand Tour. We saw that in 2018 when he won this race, but he's just struggled since then to put results together in a Grand Tour. He's a very good stage hunter, and I'm not sure what his objectives will be for this race, but I do think that with his improved time trial this year, he should try and give the GC a crack. I think that if he can just hold it together, he would be a strong contender to go onto the podium. And I think that is all of the main contenders for this race. Let me know in the comments down below if there's anybody that I've missed. Are you looking forward to the Vuelta? And all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!